Thank you, Mr. Chairman, very much. And the principal reason why we're here is mountaintop removal mining, and it's one of the single most environmentally destructive practices on Earth. The streams in the Appalachian region are being buried at an estimated rate of 120 miles per year, and the regulations governing this harmful mining practice are more than 30 years old. But more than destroying the health of the environment, this mining practice is destroying the health of the residents in local communities. There are mountains of evidence that mountaintop removal mining is significantly harming the health of the residents in these areas. And it is well past time for the Interior Department to update these regulations to ensure that we can protect the health of local communities, our environment, and our climate. And I'm pleased and proud that the Interior Department is engaged in the process of issuing strong new rules that will help protect streams and the people and their health in the communities that surround them from mountaintop mining. So, Director Pizachik, the Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act of 1997, which I will now refer to as SMACRA, just so that anyone who is listening knows what we're talking about, lays out a number of purposes of the Act aimed at lessening the impacts of mining on the environment. Specifically, it is intended to establish, quote, a nationwide program to protect society and the environment from the adverse effects of surface coal mining operations, and to assure that surface coal mining operations are so conducted as to protect the environment. Isn't the Interior Department's stream protection rule necessary to fulfill the Department's statutory obligations under the law?
Absolutely, Senator.
So it doesn't go beyond your authority, but in fact, it is an exercise of your authority and your responsibility to protect the environment and the health of those who live near these streams. Is that correct?
Yes, Senator.
If you did not, in fact, take these actions, given what we now know 30 years later, you would not actually be fulfilling your responsibilities in the job which you have right now. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So would the Department's proposed stream protection rule protect the environment and local communities by reducing the number of streams that are buried or adversely affected?
Yes, sir. That was an expected outcome, and we expect there will be several thousand miles of streams that will have been protected by
that will be protected. And as a result of your protection of them, it will reduce the amount of toxic pollution which will go into the streams that otherwise would be in the streams that could have adverse impacts on human beings. Is that correct?
Yes, Senator.
And you consider that to be your responsibility to protect against deadly toxic materials going into streams, going into rivers in America?
Not only do I believe that, but that is specifically set forth a number of times in SMACRA.
Yeah, so that's why it's hard to understand why people would object to this. I mean, we just learned the lessons once again in Flint, Michigan, but going back all the way to the Cuyahoga River in Cleveland, we see what happens when there is a callous indifference to using river streams as just dumping grounds, toilets, where arsenic, other dangerous materials are just poured into these bodies of water. Ultimately, it comes back to hurt the health of families, and we can see in the pictures night after night of how horrified ordinary families are in Flint, Michigan, but we know that's not the only place in America where there is a danger from lead in pipes. This is just one example, but the faces of the people in that community are saying pretty much, We thought the government was protecting us. We wouldn't believe that water could come out of a faucet that could harm our children. We wouldn't believe anyone would allow the water that our children are exposed to could have these dangerous materials in them. And you could almost see them saying, we trusted you. You know, we wouldn't think that you would allow something so dangerous to occur without the protections being put in place. So there have been many studies that have been done documenting the adverse health impacts associated with living in areas affected by mountaintop removal mining operations. Did your department take into account the health impacts associated with this type of mining in developing your new rule?
Senator, as part of our process, we looked at all the science that we could get our hands on as far as what the impacts of coal mining were, in order to factor that into what we were proposing.
And what was the conclusion which you reached?
We have concluded that, based on the developments in science, that we are continuing to have streams that are adversely impacted, water that is adversely impacted by coal mining, both groundwater and surface water, and that we need to up our game, to modernize our rules, to better protect the surface and groundwaters from the adverse effects of mining.
Thank you. So the streams in the Appalachian region are the headwaters for the drinking water supply for tens of millions of Americans. So it's not just some isolated issue that we're talking about. The impact is on tens of millions of people and their drinking water. And if arsenic or selenium is going into that water, then there's a danger to children, not just in that one location, but as it flows down the water bodies that are near those headwaters. So that's your essential concern, to protect the health and well-being of families in our country.
Yes, Senator. And just to put it in perspective, the headwaters of the Potomac River start in Appalachia.
Well, I think the water that we're drinking right now should be checked immediately so that we understand what the impact should be on those of us who are here in this room today. It has to be an ongoing quest to ensure that we have the highest quality drinking water. Flint, Michigan has just been the poster child for what can happen if you forget the children in our country. Thank you, sir, for all your good work.